What if you lost everything? The success, the character you created, your sole source of income. How does an artist react when they are betrayed, humiliated, and forced to face bankruptcy? Most would give up. But the story we are about to tell is not about giving up. It is about radical invention. To understand how a billion-dollar empire was forged from total ruin, we must look at one of the worst days in American corporate history. It was on November 18th, 1928, that the post-Oswald crisis and the birth of sound-synchronized Mickey Mouse changed the course of global entertainment forever. That year, Disney was a mere 70 days away from exhausting its capital and closing its doors forever. Failure was imminent, but salvation would not come from a millionaire contract, but from a small rodent, scribbled on a train, carrying a technical innovation no one else had: synchronized sound. This is the lesson of the mouse, how one cartoon saved Disney from bankruptcy. On November 8, the post-Oswald crisis and the birth of sound-synchronized Mickey Mouse, marked the day that changed everything. And on that November 18th, 1928, it wasn't just another cartoon being released. It was the last bullet in the chamber of a collapsing studio. Months earlier, producer Charles Mintz had systematically stolen the rights to Walt Disney's first great success, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, taking nearly 80% of Disney's animation staff with him. It was an utter betrayal, a loss that sent Disney spiraling toward ruin. In a matter of weeks, Disney wasn't just broke, he was humiliated, financially and creatively gutted. But this devastating bankruptcy forced a radical reinvention. While virtually every animation studio still operated in silence, Disney and his faithful animator Ub Iwerks risked everything on a game-changing technical plot twist, synchronizing every movement, every gag, with the audio track using the new Movietone sound system. The cost of failure meant complete annihilation of the Disney brand, but the sound wasn't just a gimmick. It was the synchronized rhythmic heart of a brand new character, conceived on a train slate ride home, a small, resilient mouse named Mickey. That synchronization would change not only animation, but the very economics of American cinema, setting the stage for a media empire whose value, today, is measured in the hundreds of billions. Yes, but to truly understand how that global empire arose, we must return to a point where Disney was worth very little indeed, less than the cost of a train ticket home. The year is 1928. Walt Disney, just 26, believed he was on top of the world. His character, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, was a proven hit, generating substantial revenue for Universal Pictures distributor Charles Mintz. That spring, Walt traveled from California to New York, expecting to negotiate a higher budget for his next season of shorts. Instead, he faced the brutal reality of Hollywood's machine. Mintz, having quietly secured the rights to Oswald, the character Walt believed was his, delivered a shocking ultimatum: accept a drastically lower fee or lose everything. Worse, Mintz had already poached Disney's key animators, offering them higher salaries to work on Oswald without Walt. This was not merely a business setback, it was professional annihilation, a betrayal that wiped out years of work, and approximately $400,000 in immediate potential revenue, the equivalent of over $7 million today. Stripped of his successful character, his studio staff, and on the brink of bankruptcy, Walt boarded a train back to Los Angeles. The journey was a crucible. Facing total loss, he realized he couldn't replicate Oswald. He had to invent something entirely new, something unique enough to be instantly unforgettable, and simple enough that they couldn't steal the core idea again. Legend says that somewhere between Kansas City and the Mojave Desert, on a plain sheet of paper, the silhouette took shape. Not a rabbit, but a humble mouse. Mortimer, initially, but his wife, Lillian, suggested a friendlier name: Mickey. The birth of Mickey Mouse, however, was only half the battle. Simply drawing a new character wouldn't guarantee success in a crowded market. The real turning point, the crucial innovation, lay in technology. While silent films still dominated the animated scene, the talkie revolution sparked by the jazz singer in 1927 was transforming cinema. Against all conventional financial wisdom, facing monumental debt and barely able to pay his loyal partner Ub Iwerks, Walt made a desperate, high-stakes bet. His new mouse wouldn't just move, He would speak and crucially he would sing in perfect synchronization. On November 18, 1928, Steamboat Willie premiered at the Colony Theatre in New York. Though it was technically the third Mickey cartoon produced, it was the first to use synchronized sound. The audience reaction was instantaneous and explosive. It wasn't the plot, simple as a nursery rhyme, but the precision. The sound effects matched the movements exactly. This fusion of sight and sound, previously unseen in animation, established a new paradigm. That single, audacious short transformed a bankrupt dreamer into a technological pioneer, a distinction far more valuable than the character rights he had lost. But what gave a man, who had just been professionally destroyed, the courage to risk his last dollar on such an expensive and uncertain innovation? That courage was not born of arrogance, but of absolute despair. In March 1928, Walt Disney walked away from that meeting with Charles Mintz, not only without his character, Oswald, but without his team of animators and, worse, without his name in control of his own work. He was 26 years old. His company, once valued in the tens of thousands of dollars, had become nothing more than a ripped-up contract. To understand the magnitude of this disaster, we must contextualize the Hollywood ecosystem of the era. Cinema was gripped by a fever of predatory acquisitions. If you were not one of the major studios, the Big Five, you were vulnerable. And Walt Disney, despite his talent, was a small producer in Kansas City whose distributor, Universal, had just devoured his greatest creation. Walt was technically bankrupt, but the physical bankruptcy of Disney's studio was not the only risk. The real danger was the bankruptcy of the idea of Walt Disney, the collapse of his reputation. He returned to Los Angeles with Ub Iwerks, the single animator who remained loyal. Iwerks was the silent engine behind the magic, a drafting genius, capable of producing 700 drawings per day faster than anyone in the industry. Together, they needed a new character. Mice were ubiquitous, but usually repulsive. Walt, recalling a pet mouse he kept in Kansas City, gave him a humanized look, red shorts, yellow shoes, and the initial name, Mortimer. Walt's wife, Lillian, intervened, deeming Mickey friendlier. But the birth of Mickey Mouse was an act of desperation disguised as creativity, executed in absolute secrecy. Yet, a new character alone would not solve the fundamental problem. How could he compete with the producers who now held his past and commanded vastly more capital? The answer was not in the art, but in the engineering. The year was 1928, and Hollywood was being electrified by the sound revolution. On October 6, 1927, Al Jolson broke the silence with the jazz singer *. That film, utilizing the Vitaphone system sound Dondisc, demonstrated that the future was audible. But for animation, sound was a treacherous frontier. It was expensive. It was technically complex. It required perfect synchronization between film and track, something that sound Dondisc systems made a logistical nightmare. Major studios were reluctant to invest billions in converting their equipment. It is estimated that by the end of 1928, only about 10% of American movie theaters were equipped to show sound films. What did this mean for Walt? It was a financial all-in. If he failed, he was ruined. But if he succeeded, he would leapfrog the entire competition stuck in the silent era. Walt and Iwerks decided not just to add music, they would do the unthinkable for the time. Synchronized sound, frame by frame, where every movement, every beat, and every whistle corresponded exactly to the soundtrack. The first Mickey cartoon, Plain Crazy was already finished but was silent and found no distributor. The third film featuring Mickey, Steamboat Willie, was chosen for the innovation. Walt had to beg for loans, spending the equivalent of $5,000, perhaps 100% of his entire available capital, to secure a third-party sound-on-film system and hire a sound technician. The crucial moment was not drawn, but tested. In an improvised shed, Walt and Iwerks joined local musicians. Walt pounded the rhythm with his foot, shouting instructions. They tried to synchronize the drawings with the music and failed miserably. The timing was always off. The trauma of losing Oswald seemed small next to the impending technical embarrassment, but Walt, who had been betrayed by executives, refused to be betrayed by engineering. He persisted. He and Iwerks developed a rudimentary timing system that would allow the orchestra musician to follow a visual sequence, ensuring that Mickey's whistle, the ship's horn, and the sound of the goat, yes, the goat eating the sheet music, fell into the exact right time. Steamboat Willie would become the first cartoon to feature a fully synchronized, post-produced soundtrack, a technological feat that redefined what animation could be. On the night of November 18, 1928, at the Colony Theatre in New York, the audience wasn't there to see a mouse. They were there for a typical film. But when the sailor Mickey Mouse appeared on screen, not just moving, but whistling in perfect harmony with the orchestra, the reaction was instantaneous and cathartic. They gave a standing ovation. They laughed at the absurd synchronization of that tiny creature. This was not just the debut of a character, it was the debut of a new medium. Walt Disney had traded the security of the known Oswald the Rabbit for the total uncertainty of the technological vanguard. The lesson was not about the art of drawing, but about corporate resilience. When faced with total loss, the only way out is through innovation that the competition is either unwilling or unable to finance. He had just saved himself and his brand, but the story was far from over. In 11 months, the crash of 1929 would hit Wall Street, plunging the world into a brutal depression. What would happen when America, now impoverished, desperately needed escapism? And who would be there to offer them the first glimpse of a magical, talking, and colored world? The answer arrived, thunderous and in black and white, on the screen of the Colony Theatre in New York. On November 18, 1928, the world was already on the cusp of an economic earthquake. Great Depression was only months away and people were desperate for a distraction. What they received was not just an animation, but an audible revolution. When Steamboat Willie premiered, it wasn't the novelty of the drawing that stunned the audience. It was the impeccable synchronization. Walt Disney hadn't invented sound cinema, but he had perfected the marriage between action and score, turning the simple act of a character playing a drum or blowing a whistle into pure rhythmic joy. The financial success was immediate and overwhelming. Mickey Mouse, born from desperation and the ashes of Oswald, instantly generated the revenue stream needed not just to pay off the crippling debt, but to launch the Disney studio into orbit. Think about the scale of this pivotal moment. In less than 2 years, Mickey Mouse became the first animated character to be internationally licensed. By 1930, merchandise from watches to writing pads was generating millions. The nearly imploded studio had discovered the blueprint for intellectual property (IP) monetization, a system that would later be perfected across the entertainment industry. This massive corporation, valued today in the hundreds of billions, can trace its entire foundation back to the revenue generated by that single, 8-minute short film. But the true lesson of the mouse is not about technological success. It is about resilience forged in total loss. Had Walt kept Oswald, he likely would have stayed comfortable, producing silent shorts, avoiding the high cost and technical risk of sound. The betrayal, the complete institutional failure, was the only force strong enough to compel him towards radical, unassailable innovation, the synchronized sound technology that no former business partner could simply take away. This event proves that sometimes, the greatest professional disaster is the essential prerequisite for true, lasting greatness. The loss of a bunny created the opportunity for a mouse. The bankruptcy was silenced by sound, and from that bitter, cold winter, Walt Disney built not just a studio, but the enduring American dream itself. This story shows us that true innovation often isn't sought out. It is violently imposed by necessity. The resounding success of Steamboat Willie on November 18, 1928, with its revolutionary synchronized sound, did more than just pay the bills. It injected the necessary faith and capital to rebuild what Universal had stolen. The true legacy of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit was not the immediate popularity he brought, but the brutal betrayal that taught Walt Disney that creative control was non-negotiable. By losing everything, the character, the team, the name Disney was forced to radically innovate, not just creating a new character, but pioneering a new form of sound entertainment that changed cinema forever. What seemed like the absolute end, with financial ruin looming, became the most powerful catalyst in entertainment history. In 1928, Disney was just a small, struggling studio. Yet, just 3 years later, by 1931, Mickey Mouse was already a global sensation, generating millions in merchandise and setting the international standard for animation and franchising. This powerful act of resilience defines the history of any great empire. Look at Disney today. a global behemoth valued at over $160 billion, all built upon the bitter lesson learned in that dark, lonely room trying to save a small mouse. The lesson of the mouse is clear. The greatest, most transformative innovation often arises directly from the greatest loss. This was just one of the days that molded our world. Tomorrow, we will publish another landmark historical event. To ensure you don't miss it, subscribe now to The Day That Changed Everything and activate notifications. What other day would you like to see featured here? Comment below.